Hello again. You're interested in coaching and neurology, and today we're going to give you a little bit more. We're going to talk about the transformational learning journey that takes place during specific forms of facilitative coaching. Now, in order to do that, we also need to talk a little bit about the 4 levels of coaching. Now, some of you may already have seen the link to a video diary on the 4 levels, and the link is on this page. But briefly, the 4 levels show that there are 2, if you like, intellectual levels, and which are very observable in terms of the behaviour of the coachee. And the top levels 3 and 4 are levels at which, instead of the intellectual processing, there is a more of an internal processing. Again, observables in the behaviour can be shown, and the other video will give you all the details you would need to understand the 4-level model. So when we look at the transformational learning journey, what are we talking about? Let's have a look at it now. So in the diagram, if you can see that, you'll see there are levels 1, 2, 3 and 4 on the vertical scale, and a coaching or learning journey across the horizontal scale, which is marked in minutes from 1 to 3 only. The first 3 minutes or so of a facilitative coaching journey. Now, that 3 minutes starts the moment that the coachee and the coach sit down and start talking. So there isn't a long process of getting to know you. The process of asking facilitative questions has already started, and what we're trying to do is the coach, with the coachee's permission of course, is to facilitate them into the higher levels of learning. Those levels 3 and 4, where the coachee has to go internal in order to access information, experiences, sounds and feelings, historical stuff that go into these spaces, and sometimes for many seconds, sometimes even for many minutes. In this case then, from the diagram, we can see that very quickly the individuals move from intellectual discussion to level 2, where there's more searching for information. They're being challenged by the questioning to understand their own thinking, to delve a little bit more deeply, but it's still very much an intellectual exercise. There's engagement with the coach, probably quite a lot of eye contact and quite a lot of activity in the body itself too. Then we see within about 2/3 of a minute the first behavioural changes, which signify that the coachee's moved into level 3, and soon after that to levels 3 and 4, and then longer periods of level 4, where the individual for more than 2 seconds, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more seconds, is in an internal learning state where the concentration is so wholly internal that they are no longer really with the coach. They've gone so internal that they're processing, they're seeking for information and knowledge, understanding about their own thinking and feelings has gone completely internal. So that is, if you like, what happens in the transformational learning journey. What will be particularly surprising to many people, and professional coaches too, is that the speed at which it is possible to facilitate people into these much deeper learning states, and how quickly that can be facilitated. Now, there are a number of coaching skills associated with being able to do that. The predominant among those is reflective language, whereby the coach will pick up a word or words or whole phrases from what the coachee has been saying. These will be words that appear to be very significant to them, and the coach will reflect that word or those words, those phrases back, possibly followed by a question, possibly just reflecting them back. Just the fact that they've been reflected back, they've come out from the neurology of the individual, for the neural pathways, those phrases, those words go back in through the same pathway. There's no intellectual requirement needed by the coachee. The words are familiar, they know them, they just go straight back and stimulate that same part of the brain, and stimulate a deeper level of learning. And we know that from looking at the learning journey curve. And the one I showed you, although it was a schematic, it's actually taken from research of 3 specific coaching journeys that individuals took, and the generalized format of what happened in those 3 different coaching journeys with 3 different people in the first 3 minutes. So what are the sorts of skills? We've talked about reflective language and the importance of that. What sort of skills are we talking about? Well, there's one whole group, and there are at least 3 groups identified, but one whole group is identified by a phrase, coach follows the coachee. And in these, the coach is invariably using reflective language as the baseline for what the coach does in response to what they observe, see, feel, and intuit from what's happening with the coachee. So one of those is F plus stroke W stroke M4, and what that means is that the coach is following, they're following the words, which is a W, and there is a metaphor involved. And when a coach is inviting a metaphor, doesn't always work, they're saying something like, and that is like. So in other words, the coachee will say something, there seems to be significance in it, and the coach will be repeating that same word, or those same words, or that same phrase, and then will say, and that is like, for example. What that does is the individual goes inside to find out what is that like, and finds a clean expression, and by clean I mean the coachee hasn't mentioned, what can you see, what can you feel, what can you hear. We've just said, what is that like? So it's clean in the sense that the individual can look internally for a reply to that means something very significant to them. And that can open up a whole level of coaching journey, which becomes really, really important to the individual. Now, from what we've been saying before, we can see when we ask that question, there's a good chance the individual will go internal, and that they will quickly go to levels 3 and 4 in order to find the information they need. In other words, a deeper neurological investigation in order to learn something about themselves, about their thinking, about their motivation, about their commitment, whatever. There are 2 others which are quite similar, and they're to do again with reflective language, again with the coach following what they're observing and seeing and noticing about the coachee, but in which the coach is trying to facilitate into levels 3 and 4. So we've got one which is called a trail, so it's F plus stroke W stroke trail, so it's the coach following the coachee is the F plus, W is the words used by the coachee, and the trail is the trailing off. So the coach trails off. So they may be saying the same sentence or phrase, and they may have begun to ask a question, and then the coach is trailing off. Now they're doing that in response to observations about the behaviour of the individual. So when we look at the 4 levels, we see that there are behavioural indicators that the coachee has started to go internal. Now at that point, when they're internal, there's little point in the coach continuing to speak, there's little point in the coach asking questions or doing anything else. They may as well just let the voice trail off, and that will help accelerate the speed at which the individual will be able to, without any interruption, without any other intervention from the coach, to be able to move gracefully and more deeply into that learning state. So that's the trailing off as one of those coach following coachee group of interventions of inducing and maintaining deep learning neurological states. The other one I mentioned, which is related to that, is soft speaking. So this is not so much a trailing off, but it's an F plus, so the coach follows the coachee. Again, we're using reflective language, so the W is about the words of the individual, and then the soft is about the speaking softly. So now we're not matching specifically, we're matching the words, we're matching possibly the pace, but we're just speaking very softly. Now that might be done just once, might be done twice, might be done 3 times, might be done 4 times. So again, the words are going directly in through the same neural pathway. No major intellectual challenge there for the coachee. So the words just go in, they hit that part of the neurology again, and the state can be deepened and the individual can go much deeper. Now we see that when we look at that transformational learning journey curve again. We see that people will flick up to different levels from the intellectual levels into the deeper learning states at 3 and 4.